Hi, I'm Ben Ferguson, and welcome to your AMAC Weekly News. First up, members of Congress have finally come back from vacation, they call it recess, to major changes in both the so-called impeachment inquiry and the Durham investigation. Now, both could lead to concessions as well as losses from the liberal side of the aisle. More on what is changing in a moment. Up next, we all know that Medicare for all will never work. Now, it's becoming more clear that the only way to even attempt to implement this liberal idea being presented by 2020 Democratic candidates is through massive and extreme taxes that Americans have never even experienced or thought of. What could mean more out of your pocket and how much it could cost you? Well, I've got the data for you in just a moment. And finally, the president leads our armed forces to a victory in the killing of ISIS leader al-Baghdadi. He's been killed, yet the liberals and mainstream media can't even give President Trump a win on this issue. See what they're trying to use to once again criticize the president in just a moment. Don't forget to please share this video with your friends on social media. Your AMAC Weekly News starts right now. Two massive stories come to the forefront as Congress comes back from recess. The first is obviously the continuation of the so-called impeachment inquiry. Now, the problem for liberals in Congress up to this point has been the fact that they won't even give conservatives or the president a voice in any of this, quote, investigation. They wouldn't even take a vote on it. Now, voting on whether or not to have an impeachment inquiry is really important. It allows the side of the president to actually be able to present a case and to hear what's being said by the left and even ask questions of the witnesses that they have called. Now, that has not been done for weeks. In fact, they even told witnesses to not answer questions from any Republicans. Well, finally, liberals relented to deciding to now have a vote on the inquiry on Thursday. And Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, released a letter announcing the vote and saying that this impeachment resolution, quote, affirms the ongoing existing investigation and establishes the procedure for future investigative steps. She also said that they are taking this step to eliminate any doubt as to whether the Trump administration may withhold documents, prevent witness testimony, disregard authorized subpoenas, or continue obstructing the House of Representatives. Now, what this basically means is that they are going to ignore the fact that they have been doing this all wrong from the very beginning. And now they're going to act like this is going to make it all okay because they had a vote to bring it all out in the light. Now, this also makes a point to try and claim that Donald Trump and his administration have refused to cooperate as somehow obstructing an investigation they never got permission to go through with in the first place. Now, conservative congressional leaders like House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy say this is something to applaud because Pelosi is finally admitting that all of this is a sham. Take a look.
I applaud the Speaker for finally admitting it is a whole entire sham, but you can't put the genie back in the bottle. A due process starts at the beginning. It doesn't affirm a sham investigation all the way through. If you were in a legal term, it'd be the fruit from the poisonous tree. It'd be a mistrial. None of this information would go forward. But what's most important to the American public, we all have the phone call. We all have the transcript. We are all able to see there was no quid pro quo.
Now, with an election on the horizon, liberals in swing states and districts could get serious flack for voting in favor of anything involving impeachment. The vote would force them to put their support in writing for voters to actually see. There was also some really good news this week as the Durham investigation into the initial Russia probe has turned into an actual criminal investigation. This means there will finally be a real investigation into the witch hunt to try and overthrow the free and fair election of Donald Trump. This escalation of Durham's investigation prompted immediate accusations from liberals that the Bill Barr-led DOJ has become compromised at a time when Trump faces an impeachment inquiry over his interactions with Ukraine. The president has publicly called for investigations of former FBI Director James Comey, former CIA Director John Brennan, and former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, among others. Now, those that have read the Durham report believe this should leave men like these I just mentioned really shaking in their boots. Now, what is really funny is that Comey is pretending not to care about this at all. Take a look at this from his most recent interview that aired on C-SPAN.
I'm not worried about a single thing in connection with any of the matters under investigation, gather the facts, write a report, and share it with the American people. Please do that. Because all this stuff in the media with the Attorney General saying stuff doesn't jibe, is an attack on the integrity of the institution.
You mean kind of like the attacks on the institutions of the office of the President of the United States of America, Comey? It's interesting how quickly liberals will say transparency is important when it involves investigations into them personally. Now, as more information about the Durham/Barr report surfaces and the continued impeachment attempts of President Trump come to light, we here at AMAC are going to keep you up to date on this very important story. We already know that Medicare for all basically means health care for none. Now, these radical ideas by liberals running for president in 2020 have become even more and more extreme. They want to give away all of this supposedly free stuff, but what their supporters don't think about is that all of this comes at an extremely high price tag. Take Senator Elizabeth Warren, for example. She still has not come forward with a plan for how she will magically pay for Medicare for all, without having massive tax increases on everyone, including the middle class. Now, watch her most recent dodge of questions that was aired on MSNBC on this exact issue.
Senator, shouldn't you have decided how you're going to pay for the plan before you released your health care plan?
I've been working on the details for a long time. I've been a co-sponsor of Medicare for All since it came out.
But is it fiscally responsible to release a plan before you figured out how you're going to pay for it?
I think there have been many estimates about what the cost would be and many different payment streams. And I've been working on how to give the exact details to make that work.
It's important to note that Warren has come out with an overly detailed plan for every other idea that she has had, but she is still not coming forward with this magical Medicare for all plan and how we're going to pay for it. You want to know why? Well, new estimates have come out showing that Medicare for all would require at least $3 trillion in new spending. Now, let me put that into perspective for you, and you're going to want to share this with your friends. $3 trillion is about as much tax revenue as the government currently brings in an entire year. If they wanted to actually implement just this one plan, taxes would have to at least double on everyone. Now, there are a couple ways outlined by the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget as to how this could actually be paid for. Warren tries to claim it will all come from the top 2% that she's going to have a massive tax on of these, quote, evil ultra millionaires. Well, in reality, Medicare for all would be so expensive that if you tax the top earners at 100% of everything they made, all of their income, everything, anyone that earned more than $408,000 per year in this country, you still wouldn't have enough money to pay for Medicare for all for 1 year. So here's another option. You could have a 42% national sales tax, which would generate about $3 trillion in revenue while destroying the entire economy. Or you could have a 32% tax split between employers and their workers, or a 25% surtax on everybody. Or the government could cut 80% of spending on everything but health care, which includes highways, airports, and the Pentagon. Now, we all know that Warren won't come forward with a plan because she doesn't have a plan that would really work for any of the Americans that she claims she's protecting. Now, when you actually have the facts to look at this and put it down on paper and see the math, you realize this is a disaster. Now, math is not a partisan issue, and the math on Medicare for all is not going to help anyone, including those she claims it will help the most. The president led a raid that ended in the death of the leader of ISIS, al-Baghdadi. That's right. The leader of ISIS is dead, and everyone should celebrate that. This should be a moment of joy for the president and for the American people and for the military and for the liberals and the mainstream media. Yet, liberals in the mainstream media are already trying to figure out ways to complain about killing the leader of ISIS. You don't believe me? Just take a look at Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and the liberal members of Congress who were enraged and upset that the president didn't speak with congressional leadership prior to going forward with this raid to kill the number one terrorist in the world. Now, do you know what the president had to say about that? Well, in the most basic terms, President Donald Trump said that he didn't tell them because American lives were at stake, and there is no way he could trust them to keep a big secret like this. In fact, President Trump called Washington a leaking machine. Watch this from his press conference following the successful mission that aired on Fox News.
And have you notified the congressional leaders about this? Pelosi? We've notified some. Others are being notified now as I speak. We were going to notify them last night, but we decided not to do that because Washington leaks like I've never seen before. There's no country in the world that leaks like we do. And Washington is a leaking machine.
No matter who you are, if you're being intellectually honest, you know that Donald Trump is right. There is no way that liberals in Washington could keep a secret this big, actually keeping it a secret. And revealing this secret would have put American lives at risk. It also would have destroyed the mission and allowed for the #1 terrorist in the world to possibly get away. There are also more reasons to believe the president is right on this and to say, hey, I'm not going to tell you. I'll give you a great example. Back in 2017, General Tony Thomas explained at the Aspen Security Conference that a prior lead on al-Baghdadi went dead following a media leak. Now, if only that were all that the media and liberals complained about with regard to this, but there's more. They also complained about the way Trump announced it. That's right. Take a look at this montage of how the media reported on how Donald Trump announced this and how they didn't like it. Here it is.
The raid that killed al-Baghdadi is both a military and political victory for the Trump administration. But some officials point out that it may say as much about the flaws in Trump's foreign policy as it does about how well it can work.
He sounded not like a president of the United States. He actually sounded like Saddam Hussein after torturing people, sounded like Muammar Gaddafi after he would torture people.
There's a long trail ahead of him actually finally releasing details, explicit details, some of which sort of echoed, and frankly, the crudeness you would often expect to hear maybe from ISIS about the whimpering, screaming Baghdadi.
I think from a standpoint of symbolism and importance of the country, taking down Osama bin Laden had a lot more meaning than this.
Can we at least agree that the world is a better place without this guy in it? Who, Trump or the Baghdadi?
Now, even when the president leads a successful mission that ends the life of the most dangerous and evil man on the face of the earth, somehow liberals and the media find reasons to complain. Now, this is why it's time for us to stand behind the president and support him. He's doing his job. He's protecting our country. He's protecting our Constitution. And all the liberals are trying to do is take that away. That's it for this edition of your AMAC Weekly News. Now be sure to share this post with your friends on Facebook and Twitter. Also, a quick reminder, if you haven't joined AMAC or renewed your membership, do it right now and join 2 million other conservatives as we represent you in Washington on these important issues every day. Don't forget, you also get the AMAC magazine. And most importantly, you have a voice that is standing up for you in Washington on Capitol Hill every day. So make sure you join or renew right now. I'm Ben Ferguson. I'll see you back next week for our next episode.